Coming up on Market to Market, EPA creates shock waves over drinking water. New federal rules ruffle more than a few feathers. And the next generation takes the reins of vet care in wide open spaces. Those stories and market analysis with John Roach next.
Funding for Market to Market is provided by Grinnell Mutual. You think differently about a customer when you stand in the middle of his dreams. We work to make sure you get covered right. Grinnell Mutual, a policy of working together. Information on finding an agent near you is available at grinnellmutual.com. This is the Friday, December 16 edition of Market to Market, the weekly journal of rural America.
Hello, I'm Mike Pearson. Consumers put buying a new car on hold and instead spent a little more at local restaurants. Trips to the diner helped put retail sales up 0.1%. Without the drag from fewer automobile sales, the rate rose 0.2%. Consumer spending may have been blocked by the rise in consumer prices, which have grown by 1.7% over the past year. And U.S. housing starts fell 18.7% as mortgage rates hit their highest level of the year. Even before all the data from November was in, the Federal Reserve said the economy was in good enough shape and pulled the trigger on higher interest rates. Rural Americans seeking loans will likely find the shift unwelcome. Animal producers suffering from low prices will particularly feel the pinch. Some lawmakers are concerned that concentration in the meatpacking industry makes price discovery less competitive. This week, USDA's Grain Inspection, Packers and Stockyards Administration tried to solve the problem and produced a firestorm of criticism. Paul Yeager has the details.
America's livestock and poultry producers have 3 new rules to ponder this holiday season. The first would look at the poultry grower ranking or tournament system and is considered unfair outside of legitimate business justification. A second regulation change would further clarify what constitutes unfair practices and extends to helping producers with marketing contracts. The third rule, an interim, under consideration, would lower the threshold for suing meat companies, as farmers would not need to prove an industry malfeasance, just the impact to their own operation. The National Chicken Council's president, Mike Brown, said the rules, quote, could lead to rigid, one-size-fits-all requirements on chicken growing contracts that would stifle innovation, lead to higher costs for consumers, and cost jobs by forcing the best farmers out of the chicken business. The National Cattlemen's Beef Association labeled GIPS's rules as troubling for the industry in marketing animals and would open the floodgates to litigation. The heads of the House and Senate Agricultural Committees, both Republicans, cried foul along with the National Pork Producers Council. The NPPC cited the rules as politically motivated, saying the USDA responded, quote, in an apparent attack on rural America for its role in helping elect Donald Trump as president. Secretary Vilsack fired back, calling the NPPC's comments, quote, absolutely absurd, adding, we're all about what's fair to producers. The decision did not ruffle all feathers, as the American Farm Bureau Federation, National Farmers Union, and RCAF USA applauded the deal. Barack Obama has 37 days left in office as the time of this release. The 60-day comment period opens immediately. For Market to Market, I'm Paul Yeager.
Oklahoma Attorney General Scott Pruitt is slated to head the Environmental Protection Agency. Pruitt, an EPA critic and vocal denier of climate change, has accused the agency of being anti-energy. The current administration has curtailed energy exploration and focused on how oil drilling byproducts affect the environment. Josh Bittner has the story.
This week, the Environmental Protection Agency released its final report on the impacts of hydraulic fracturing, or fracking, on U.S. drinking water. EPA has identified cases where fracking-related activities could do harm. Environmentalists hailed the revision of last year's preliminary draft, claiming EPA reversed course on previous assessments that fracking does not cause widespread systemic harm to potable sources. The fossil fuel industry rebuked the retraction of language from 2015, which had been seized upon by advocates as proof that fracking is safe. EPA's study, requested by Congress in 2010, has cost close to $30 million. And while the report concludes the practice poses a risk in some circumstances, the agency says significant data gaps and uncertainties preclude definitive answers. Fracking involves pumping large volumes of water, sand, and chemicals underground to split open rock formations to allow oil and natural gas flows to be collected on the surface. The practice has spurred an ongoing domestic energy boom, yet also raised widespread concerns regarding groundwater contamination, increased air pollution, and even earthquakes. The 5.6 magnitude seismic shock waves felt in at least 6 states over Labor Day weekend have been attributed to wastewater injection from hydraulic fracturing and other sources in Oklahoma. Critics charge the backtrack raises more questions than answers and is clouded by political ambiguity just weeks before President Obama leaves office. Some say new lame duck regulations aimed at extraction industries would provide speed bumps to an incoming administration perceived friendly to new fossil fuel development. For Market to Market, I'm Josh Bittner.
The population in rural America has been on the decline since the Civil War, leaving more work for fewer hands. When important agricultural jobs are made vacant by flight to urban areas, death, or retirement, the search to find a suitable replacement begins. Getting someone to stay in town or travel against the flow may seem like an impossible task, but there are ways to inspire some folks to seek the wide open spaces. Peter Tubbs explains.
A horse with a foot problem is the first patient on Monday morning at the Droege Animal Health Center in Eureka, Kansas. Greenwood County is defined by the Flint Hills, which limits agriculture to ranching rather than row crops. Horses are the preferred tool for herding cattle here, making equine medicine an important part of a vet practice. This is the only large animal vet clinic in the county, and both veterinarians on duty tend to the patient.
It's hard to do that one-handed, isn't it?
Dr. Kaylee Fitzmaurice is solving a problem in American agriculture, a scarcity of veterinarians willing to work with the millions of food animals in rural areas. The USDA's Veterinary Loan Repayment Program is an encouragement to fill the gap. Fitzmaurice sees a reduction in the principal of her vet school loan for each year she works in an underserved region of the United States.
I'm going to give an antibiotic called Nuflor to take care of the infection of the skin.
Fitzmaurice joined Dr. Dwayne Droege to care for some of the 300,000 food animals in a 9-county region of southeast Kansas. Droege is nearing retirement, and Dr. Fitzmaurice is in the process of buying the practice. The loan repayment program is allowing that to happen ahead of schedule.
Without the program, it wouldn't even be feasible for me to think about buying a practice, and I'm only 2 years out, and we'll have the practice bought by next year. So it's just totally changed the financial aspect of moving to a rural community where before it wouldn't have been feasible for probably 10, 15 years, and 5 years out we'll be right on track. So it's been awesome.
The Vet Loan Repayment Program defines the regions with the highest need for veterinary services and strives to place veterinarians into these regions. Vets willing to take care of food animals are the highest priority, followed by those willing to work in rural areas at least 30% of their time.
That's what I was hoping to find.
An average annual investment of $5 million USDA dollars has had mixed results, but progress in the most critically underserved areas have been a bright spot in the program. Since the first year of loan repayments in 2010, the number of areas where large animal veterinarians are desperately needed has been cut in half, from 40 to 20.
A lot of people probably don't see the draw of southeast Kansas, but I grew up here, my family's here. There's thousands and thousands of head of cattle here. Ranchers are here. It's been the perfect place for me, and I mean, I'm glad, I guess, there was a shortage of veterinarians here. It worked out really well.
Maintaining the veterinarian supply may be as important to the country's food chain as the animals themselves. The USDA estimates that American meat consumption will continue to grow over the next 20 years, which will require an increase in food animals to satisfy America's taste for protein, and an increase in veterinarians to maintain the health of the herd. A 7-hour drive to the west, Dr. Barbara Peterson is checking on a herd of Jersey dairy cattle near Dalhart, Texas.
Pero especialmente después de impacción, después tiene chorro, ¿no?
Peterson, who grew up on an Iowa dairy farm, found an opportunity to start her own practice with a focus on food animals, specializing in dairy. While this corner of Northwest Texas has over 1 million beef cattle, it is also home to almost 50,000 dairy animals whose milk supplies a local cheese plant. The medical care runs the spectrum, from lab work to embryo transfer using artificial insemination.
There's so many animals here, so many chances to see different things, to see cases that you wouldn't normally see if you're in a smaller practice area. So, yeah, it is rural, but it's really nice.
The dairies Peterson serves each have over 10,000 head, and milking is an 18-hour process each day. Because of the large numbers, one of Peterson's goals is on training dairy employees to triage and treat cows, holding the line until a veterinarian can arrive.
They're actually my go-to people. The employees, day to day, they know what's going on. And it's nice to get to work with that level of person, of skill.
The veterinary loan repayment program changed Peterson's finances enough to allow her to hire another veterinarian as her first employee, Dr. Aaliyah Hoffman.
She really, really has done a great job of growing into this role of, one, helping with existing clients, and two, growing relationships and new opportunities.
Peterson takes advantage of the requirement for veterinary school externships in the operation of her practice. Brian Stamfel of the University of Minnesota is one of a long line of students to pass through Dalhart.
I don't have blood.
You don't have blood? Does it push easy? Does it push easily?
Oh, yeah.
Oh, yeah, you're good.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Externships are valuable to vet students, both to learn the type of work a student prefers and the region of the country where they are most comfortable.
Having veterinary students is a lot of fun because they're about to graduate, they're ready to get in the field. We really enjoy teaching them, and we learn from them too. They're always showing us different things.
Time spent working in a community can help overcome preconceptions of an area, even if they appear to be a tough sell to an outsider. In the end, however, the work is the biggest draw to a job, regardless of location, incentives, or pay.
3 days old. Animal husbandry is definitely the most important part of our job, and I think more so even sometimes than our veterinary degree, because whether you have 10 animals or you have 10,000, each one of those girls needs to be looked after and cared for.
For Market to Market, I'm Peter Tubbs.
Next, the Market to Market Report.
Even as exports put in good numbers, a higher dollar, private acreage reports, and weaker currency rates in other ports of call left the grain markets mixed. For the week, March wheat added a nickel, and the nearby corn contract moved 9 cents higher. Hot weather in Argentina and a higher soybean acreage estimate made for a volatile week in the soy complex, as the January soybean contract finished flat. January meal lost $1.50 per ton. In the softs, March cotton gained back last week's loss to the penny. Over in the dairy parlor, January Class 3 milk futures gained 3 cents. The livestock sector continued to move higher as the February cattle contract put on $6.47. January feeders added $3.80, and the February lean hog contract increased $3.15. In the currency markets, the U.S. dollar index climbed 141 basis points to levels last seen in 2003. Crude oil gained 51 cents per barrel. Gold fell for the 7th week, losing $40.40 per ounce, dropping nearly 13% of its value since Election Day. And the Goldman Sachs Commodity Index gained almost 7 points to finish the week at 393.40. Here now to lend us his insight on these and other trends is our senior market analyst, John Roach. John, welcome back.
Thanks, Mike. Great to be here.
Before we get started, you can listen to our market discussion anytime by downloading our market analysis podcast on our website, iptv.org/M2M. Well, now let's talk about the move this week that has really dropped a lot of jaws, and that is the dollar climbing ever higher. Fed raised rates. The dollar's now up in territory we haven't seen for 13 years. John Roach, where do we go from here?
Probably stay strong. The dollar's higher because of the higher interest rates, and the Fed told us that instead of having 2 increases next year, which they'd indicated before or thought they might, that we might expect 3 increases this next year. And then the U.S. Optimism right now about the U.S. economy, and the U.S. economy starting to percolate maybe just a little bit. So there's reason for people to bring money to the United States. We're also talking about repatriating some of the profits that some of the companies have overseas, and if they can get that program put together in Congress here earlier in the year, and that's more money coming back into this country. So a lot of buyers to the dollar because of all those factors.
Well, and all those factors, especially the U.S. economy starting to percolate, these dollars potentially coming back on shore, raises some inflation pressure. And we've got a question here from Vance in Nebraska. This is from Twitter, and we encourage all of you to send in your questions to us on social media. Vance is asking, what are the odds of inflationary pressure creating commodity rallies in 2017?
Well, I think it's certainly a possibility. Inflationary pressures don't seem to be right around the corner, but they certainly could. And so we may see that. But at the moment, we're not getting much of an uptick. And as you notice, gold down $40-some. I mean, there's an inflation indicator. So there's some possibilities. Weather will be more important than the inflationary tendency, though, I think.
Speaking of weather, here in the Midwest, the Great Plains, we're expecting bitterly cold temperatures over the weekend. The wheat market responded a little bit, but we're still solidly within our range. What is it going to take to break this wheat market out, one side or the other?
Well, we're going to have to see something change in the fundamentals. And certainly if we have crop problems in this country, it's also very cold in Russia as well. And so if they've got some cold temperatures, we may have reason when we get the wheat coming out of dormancy that maybe we start to see some tightening of the supplies. But otherwise, we really don't. I mean, the wheat supplies are adequate to burdensome. And the dollar is strong, which makes it hard for us to compete in the international market. And so for a moment, we're going to continue, we think we're going to continue to have some tough sledding on wheat, but pay attention as we come out of dormancy in February, early March.
Okay. We would have to see fairly substantial winter kill, though, to really shake some of this these doldrums with this burdensome stocks?
Not necessarily. We're just going to have to fear that. And at the moment, we have the spec traders heavily short the wheat market. They have been for a long period of time. And just the idea of turning the trend up and getting the speculators to come in and cover those short positions, that in itself would give us a pretty substantial rally. So I don't think it's going to take a lot of problem, but it's going to take some sort of a catalyst to get it started. We need a match to light the fuse.
Okay. Old crop soybeans, John Roach, staying very strong in here. Exports are staying very, very solid. If we've got old crop soybeans in the bin, we're moving to soybeans. What should I be doing with those? I
think for a moment that you just have to wait a little bit. We actually had a buy signal this morning on soybeans and soybean meal, and so we think that the sell-off that we've had here, just the recent sell-off, is probably run about as far as it's going to go right now. The important thing to understand with soybeans is that we're the only store in town right now. The crops were short in Brazil because it was so dry, and short in Argentina because it's too wet, and they're sold out. And so between now and perhaps the 1st of March, we're the marketplace, and the buyers have come to the U.S. buying in faster quantities than what we would expect them to. They're running about 5% ahead of the pace that they should be at. So the U.S. estimate's probably a little bit low on total exports, and you also have speculative buying into that market. So there's several different ingredients here to give us another rally in the bean market. But on that rally, you have to understand that you're probably in a short period of time, you're going to have a lot of competition coming on from South America. And so we want to be ready to sell the next rally on soybeans. We sold the last rally that was about 2.5, 3 weeks ago, and we also started to sell 2017 beans. We sold our first increment of 17 because the market is nearly $1 over what the government forecast is, and we're concerned about big bean acres this year and having problems in the fall with a big bean crop from the U.S., a big bean crop from South America, and it'll be a completely different environment than what we have today.
And a lot of that fear, that big acreage fear, the big South American crop, I know there was a report out earlier this week, potential for 106 million metric tons to come out of Brazil, record-smashingly large. How aggressive are you on those new crop bean sales, those November 17 sales?
We sold an increment, and for most of our customers, an increment will be 10 to 15% or thereabouts. We want to sell another increment here on the next rally. We think these $10, 30 kind of prices, 1040 kind of price. Those are good price levels to get started. And if someone said, "Well, look, I'd like to sell even more," I won't argue with you very much, but if you sell more, now you have to be very cautious about what happens with weather. You've got to be prepared to come in and cover them or something of that nature.
Utilize your revenue insurance policy or something.
It would certainly have a high level of revenue coverage if you're selling heavily, and be prepared to buy some call options or some futures should weather turn sour. Remember, the key here when you have markets like this, where you have monster levels of demand, is you have no room for any weather problems. And so weather in South America is going to be very important here from now on out till probably about the 1st of March, and weather in the United States becomes important starting in March, early April.
All right. The corn market. We are a little stronger on the week. We're 9 cents higher with a substantial climb in the U.S. dollar. Does that give you some hope that this corn market is going to continue to slug along through here?
We triggered a sell signal on Tuesday.
Okay.
Wednesday. I lost track of my days now, Mike. I'm not sure. It was one
earlier
day,
this week.
It lasted for 2 days, so it must have been Wednesday, Thursday, and was gone this morning.
Okay.
And so we sold the rally in the market, but we don't really expect the corn market to break very far here. We think that the market's going to find pretty good support and will rally back up again. But we think it's a relatively narrow kind of a trading range that we're going to see unless we have some weather situations show up in South America. Remember, we had a monster crop that we harvested. I was over in Illinois, from central Illinois up to northern Illinois. There are millions and millions of bushels that are out there with a tarp over the top of them, and most of those bushels need to go by the 1st of April. And they can carry it longer, but they've got to redo some of their program if they do that. And so we think there'll be lots of bushels available for the marketplace on every little uptick in the market.
Okay. Let's take a look at these livestock markets. Substantial rally in live cattle. We climbed here $6 on the week. We're back up around 115. John Roach, is this a sign of new demand into the marketplace, or is the low solidly in live cattle?
Well, I think it is, and I think it is a sign of stronger demand, and it's also a sign of the weather that we have out there today. I mean, we really boost the market today. The dressed beef market was very strong this week, so the futures have now had enough of a move. We think it's time to be a hedger, so we have sell signals on cattle and sell signals on hogs both. So we think from here on up, you want to be moving some of that risk off and let somebody else take the risk.
And are you hedging all the way out through the summer on these market prices?
Yes, I think you look all the way out into the summer months and look at where your profit levels are and be willing to take them home.
Okay. Feeder cattle, another solid week. We did see that climb in live cattle. Are we always just going to be playing tag along here in the feeder cattle market if corn stays in that tight range? Yeah,
I think that the corn market is not going to be the key to the feeder cattle market. I think it's going to be pretty much a constant. The feeder cattle market will follow right along with the fats.
Okay. Looking at this lean hog market, this was an incredible story this last year, taking tremendous highs, and then it collapsed. Now we've bounced back. We're into the mid-60s here on the nearby lean hog contract.
It's an amazing recovery.
It's an amazing recovery. Yeah. Do you mark it on this contract because we're $20 higher than we were a month ago, or do you let it ride?
You mark it on this. Okay. You take a look at the numbers. We moved fewer numbers through the system than people were anticipating. We're current. The Chinese demand is double what it was a year ago. So we really have a lot of positive things coming to the intersection here. Plus, you've got a very strong technical performance in Chicago. So we're up into price areas where you need to be a hedger, and we're thankful to get the opportunities.
And the same story, just like on live cattle, you're hedging all the way out through summer. Some of those contracts are trading in the mid-70s right now.
Yes.
You want to sell them all?
We want to sell them all.
Is it to the point where, as a speculative trade, you'd be selling it?
No.
Okay.
What you're doing as a speculative trade is you would be fading a really big, surprising rally. That's never usually, that usually is the wrong thing to do. But if you've got inventory that you need to sell, you've got hogs you need to sell, it's fine because you're looking at profit levels and the opportunity there to remove risk from the operation.
Perfect. Now, let's talk about crude oil. We did see a little bit of a move this week. John, is crude oil going to break one way or the other anytime soon?
Well, there's possibility. I mean, with OPEC agreeing to reduce the production, then the non-OPEC oil producers agreed to reduce the production, and so the market surged on that. But the numbers out from most of the production areas in the United States, we are well over the cost of production. From $30 a barrel to $40 a barrel will catch most of the production cost, according to the numbers that we're looking at. And we've gone from having about 400 rigs out in the field. We're now up to, I think the number today was 820 or 30. So now we're not back up to the big number, which was 2,000, but we're certainly going to increase the production in the United States, and we'll probably, over a relatively short period of time, we will make up maybe we should stress that a little bit, we'll make up what it is that the other people are reducing. Plus, we don't trust them to continue to keep their numbers down. We think they'll sneak a few more barrels out than what they've planned.
Of course. If it pops the market, they'll sell a little more.
Yes.
John Roach, thanks for taking the time to join us this week.
Thank you, Mike. I really enjoyed it.
That wraps up the broadcast portion of Market to Market, but John and I will keep the market conversation going, including answering more of your questions during Market Plus, available on our website. While you're there, check out this week's M2M podcast, as Mark Gold talks about how bridging the rural-urban divide could be as simple as turning to the church. And join us again next week for a look at how a holiday flower is being used as a teaching tool. So until then, thanks for watching. I'm Mike Pearson. Have a great week.
Market to Market is a production of Iowa Public Television, which is solely responsible for its content. Funding for Market to Market is provided by Grinnell Mutual. You think differently about a customer when you stand in the middle of his dreams. We work to make sure you get covered right. Grinnell Mutual, a policy of working together. Information on finding an agent near you is available at grinnellmutual.com.